Hello, my name is Elena Noel, and I'm the founder and principal of Inspiring Accountability in the Workplace. And today I'm going to very quickly go through the results model, which is my signature model for having productive and positive accountability conversations. And since so many of us are now working remotely, working from home, and it's been a month already of adjusting to this, it seemed like finally the right time to be able to have a conversation about this and provide some resources. So I do have a book that has all of these resources in it as well, audiobook, ebook, and paperback. And today we're going to be talking about the results model. And this is a guide for how leaders can have productive and positive accountability conversations. You can use just the informal format anytime you're having a conversation and need to address something in the moment. But I also really recommend using it regularly in each of your one-on-ones as a way of coming back to the same expectation and being able to keep calibrating with that employee until the result is satisfactorily met. So just know you can go ahead and listen, think about how you can use it informally, just kind of get a grasp for the framework. I know you can also use it a lot more formally for more longer term developmental goals as well. Okay, so let me share my screen and allow you to see the results model. And okay, so here it is, the Inspiring Accountability in the Workplace results model. At the very top, we start with number one, clarifying our desired result, offering this clear expectation. And I call this the accountability anchor, because this is serving, especially at the top of this, and this will be kind of a circular approach. We're going to be recycling through these different steps until the result is met. So this clear expectation, or this accountability anchor, is essentially you lock in this expectation and qualifying it as this anchor. And then just like an anchor would be to a boat, it helps ensure that the employee never gets too far away from meeting this result. In fact, what we're trying to do is get that employee closer and closer and closer until we're right there and they meet that expectation. So this accountability anchor is what you come back to, you keep referencing it really consistently, and that really sets them up for success. So there is an accountability anchor checklist, but I want to keep this as effective and efficient as possible. So I'm going to leave that out, and I do have that in the book and elsewhere, but just do your best to create a clear expectation, and then we move on to the next step. So number two is exploring contribution. So let's say your expectation is you have an employee, a remote worker, who is not being very responsive to your request. Let's say that's through Slack or maybe email, whatever communication mode you're doing. They're just not as responsive as you would like. So let's say your clear expectation is, I would like for you to respond to my communication within 2 hours, either with acknowledgement that you received it or with the answer or whatever it is I'm requesting. So then you would be, okay, you're going to explore their contribution. And this is essentially saying, what would you need to do to be able to contribute successfully to this expectation? Now, in this case, our expectation's fairly straightforward, and this question might almost be unnecessary. You could do it. You could essentially try to understand that, but we're actually going to cover it in the later parts. Where this question is especially useful is with a bigger, little more complicated request. So something that might catch them off guard. So let's say in a meeting, if someone's being really tense and understanding this is a really tense time, you might say, I notice that you're being extra tense in meetings right now, and I know it's a difficult time, but I really would like for us to be able to work on you just being a little more friendly and kind of just helping this culture right now with your presence in the Zoom meetings. Well, then you could say, how do you think you could contribute successfully to this? And then they would start to think about, well, I guess I could, listen better, not cut people off, or, it opens up the conversation for them to reflect on what might they need to do differently. So that's where you want to use that question when there's a lot of room that could be discovered for how are they going to do that? But in this case of responding back to you within 2 hours, you could ask it, but it might be a little overkill, because where we're going to go next is asking what's in the way. And in this case, this is a new expectation. We're going to ask it in the frame of what could get in the way of you being successful with this. So given that, I would like you to be more responsive during this time within that 2-hour window. What could get in the way of you being successful with this? So now they're gonna think about it and they're gonna let you know. You're gonna get ready to hear some excuses, but excuses are golden, because when the excuse is actually brought to light, only then can we move it in to be part of the solution. And when excuses just stay inside, then they continue to be barriers, because that employee always has that reason why. So that's why you actually want to hear the excuses. You want them to say them, because where you go next, step number 4, you're going to innovate by asking them, okay, well, given that, given what's in the way, what is possible? So here's how that might look. Let's say you've put your clear expectation out there. I'd like you to respond within 2 hours with either acknowledgement or the response, the answer. And you might say, what could get in the way of doing that? Now, we don't know what they're going to say, but let's make up a reason. Let's say they say, you know, I like to work in 4-hour focused time blocks. It really helps me focus. And I'm checking that every 4 hours, not every 2. That's what's working for me. Okay, so here's what you would do. You would say, well, given that the 4 hours blocks work really well for you and your efficiency, which is important, and given that I do still want more responsiveness right now, just given how difficult this climate is, what is possible for you to be able to, let's say, check that communication every 2 hours? So you're hearing what's important to them, you're hearing what's in the way, you're validating it, and it's also not a reason for it not to get done. Now you're asking their brain to innovate and think of, okay, well, I want this, and here's the expectation. Well, what else can I do? And now they go into solution mode. That's where we want them to be. We want them thinking about possibilities. So you've prompted their brain to think about, what's possible? And we don't know what they'll come up with. They might say, okay, well, yeah, I do work better, but I'm sure I can at least set a 2-hour timer as well, where I just check my Slack. Would that be okay? Great. And then you're going to close by asking them, what's your first or next action step? And this is so important before you close any accountability conversation, because our brains are just programs. I mean, they're running programs, we're running habits. And so it's really important that we prompt the brain to think about, what is the first thing I need to do? What is the first thing I need to change right now to set myself up for success? Because the best time to plan for how to do something differently is not in the moment you need to do it. It's before. So that's what this question helps the brain do. So we've concluded this first part of offering a new expectation. You might have done this slightly informally, or you might have done it more formally in a one-on-one meeting. The employee is now number 6. They're going to take action. They're going to put forth their effort. And then let's just say this is at the next one-on-one meeting, or, you know, it could be a few days later if you notice they haven't gotten back to you as well. Now it's time to revisit. And revisiting that anchor, I say accountability always requires revisiting, and it does. So revisiting is where we're coming back to that clear expectation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, so remember how we were working on that responsiveness. The first thing you're going to do now in this reflective context is you're going to reward contribution. You can see there this orange is actually reflected here. We're going to revisit and adjust, and we're going to, I'm pointing as if you can see, but I realize you can't. Hopefully in the middle you see it says in orange, reward contribution. So now what that means is we're going to say, you know, I noticed that you were more responsive, and I do really appreciate that. And I also noticed there were still a few times where it seemed like you weren't as engaged, or you weren't checking in into Slack every 2 hours. So I'm curious what got in the way of being able to do that successfully. So now we've moved into that step 3, and then we listen to what they say. So we don't know what they'll say. Let's pretend they say, actually, I'll use my favorite example. I forgot. This happens all the time when we come and revisit something for the first time. You put a new expectation out. Oh yeah, we talked about it. Everyone's clear. You revisit and they say, well, I forgot. So here's the magic of this model and this questioning. Well, given that you forgot, what is possible for you to remember to start doing that? So truly, this prompt, just this simple prompt, is a way of hearing and acknowledging what's going on, but not letting them off the hook. We're being kind and compassionate and empathetic. It's a really tough time for a lot of people. And most likely at this point, they're going to say, I have too much going on. I'm struggling to manage everything. So let's say that they say, you know, I'm really overwhelmed right now. There's a lot going on and I'm struggling to manage everything. Then you might be able to say, absolutely, given that it is a really difficult time, what is possible for you to still be able to do this? And you want to be mindful, you know, on something like this is not a huge ask. It does require some restructuring and maybe them going against their preferences for how they work. But, you know, you just want to be mindful it is difficult. Another trick that I'm using now that I don't normally do pre-COVID-19 when I'm in the workplace where things are much more stable, I don't do this, but in this case, it's really helpful as well to say what's possible to improve this by 10%. Instead of just what's possible to fully meet the expectation. We can give people a little bit of grace, a little bit of adjustment time. And so when you say what's possible to improve your responsiveness by 10%, the brain actually treats that question the same way, but it feels a lot less stressful. It's not going to trigger them. So you can also use that tool. So in this case, let's say they had said to the responsiveness, I'm really overwhelmed. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with everything. This is happening with my family. It's happening with me. You can still say, I really understand it's a stressful time, and given that all that is happening, what else can you do to improve your responsiveness? You know, even by 10% every week. And it's still going to prompt them and their brain to have to think about something new. And that's where hopefully they discover, you know, okay, I just need to set a timer, and, you know, I don't love it, but I'm willing to try it, or something like that. And then you'll confirm again, you'll close with, okay, so what's your first or next action step? And in this case, they might say, okay, well, I'll add that 2-hour break or timer into my calendar right now. That's their first step. And then another possibility as well is that they might say, you know, I did do that. I did already, maybe that was from the first round. I did set a timer for every 2 hours. And he might say, you know, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to actually do it then like every hour and a half, because that might improve the success rate. What do you think? Would you be willing to try that and see if it improves? So it's okay to be asking questions. It's okay to be asking them what they think, what would work for them. It's really about them discovering for themselves, because that creates that buy-in and that opt-in. And you're just presenting the expectation and they're helping decide how it's done. And that's really empowering, and it's much less triggering. And then they do their effort for that next round, that next week or next few days, and then you just revisit again. And you keep revisiting this until their brain has made the habit, that's made the adjustment of meeting your expectations satisfactorily. So I hope this was helpful. I am sure there are plenty of questions, and just, you know, in this specific time right now, everyone is facing a lot of different challenges. So I am available to be doing webinars with this content, but with directly troubleshooting real employee challenges that your leaders or you are having right now. So I would love to be able to support you with that and find out what is possible for us to be able to do that, so that I can support you and obviously keep being of service here. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Elena Noel, Inspiring Accountability in the Workplace, and it was my pleasure to share this with you, and I hope it helps. Stay well, and thanks for your time.